Three, two, one. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Volta Catalunya preview. My name is Jesper Anchor, and once again, by my side this very late evening, we've got David Hunter. How are you?
Good.
So once again, on the screen, you'll see we're powered by Band of Climbers. When you're watching this video, the promo will already be over, but if you're watching it live right now, you will have a chance to actually get 10% off your next purchase. I'm sorry if you're listening to this delayed, but you know what? You should come watch us live. Follow us on Twitter to know when we're doing these previews live. Catalunya. This year, it is star-packed. I'm looking at the star list and I'm drooling. But last year, we had a surprising winner. Talk me through what happened last year.
Yeah, kind of was surprising, and that Richie Porte was the winner, just in front of Alejandro Valverde. He took quite a few stage wins last season. Van Garderen won La Molina stage, but he dropped time before that point. Porte put the rest of the GC contenders to the sword on that climb, finishing second. He distanced Contador by 5 seconds, and the rest of the race he just was in defensive mode. He put enough time into Valverde that day to go on to win the overall. Tough race last season. This one's going to be even harder.
But last year, Sky had Froome going in as their captain, but he went out early with illness, or they gave the role to Richie Porte as leader. That's something we could see this year as well. How does that dynamic work in a race like this?
This early in the season, there are so many riders who have the cold, have caught the cold, have had flu. Seems like quite a few of the riders coming from Paris-Nice have been affected by that. Contador's spoken about having had a cold. Dumoulin especially has had flu. So at this stage of the season, we can quickly change from one team leader to the other. That's why it's so good and so important to have at least two very impressive riders on your squad.
And several teams got that in this race. But before we get that, actually I saw on Twitter today that the French airport service is going on strike right now. So there's actually a bunch of riders stuck in France that can't get to Catalunya on time. Well, that's at least what the current rumor is. What happens if, let's say, 30 riders don't make it on time, and Dumoulin is one of them?
He just tweeted from the airplane, so I think he's going to be okay. They'll make it on time. If there was any danger of them not making it, they would have driven or got the train. So they'll make it there. The preparations will have been affected, of course, because they would have liked to arrive today, probably mid-afternoon, go out for a late spin. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge deal. The race starts kind of 12:30 tomorrow, Spanish time. That's the beauty of Spanish races. There's no early starts for the riders. Typical Spanish conditions. We start later on in the afternoon, maybe ride for 4 or 5 hours, finish later on than most other races. So it's not the best preparation in the world, but stage one is not going to be a GC race, so they have time to adapt before stage 3.
See, I really like that. As a student, to be able to come home at 4 o'clock and have the race finish at 5 or 5:30, it's really good. Tirreno Adriatico finishes at like 3 my time, 2 your time. It's impossible to catch the finish of that if you're actually working on the side. So kudos to you, Spain. I like how you're doing it all late. You mentioned earlier that the parkour this year is even tougher than last year, and I've heard rumors that stage 3 and stage 4 might get cancelled due to snow. But talk me through this year's parkour.
It's actually very similar to last season's, except we have 2 mountaintop finishes rather than 1. So stage 1 is Calella, which is almost the exact same stage as last year, which the breakaway won because the riders were given misinformation about the size of the gap for Paterski, Roland and de Klerk last season, and Paterski went on to take a very impressive stage win. Stage 1 in these races, as we mentioned before, is always a little bit tricky. Who's going to take control of the bunch? Who's going to ride? Last year they really made a mess of it. Stage 2 to Olot, same stage as last season, again slightly changed. Valverde won here. It's got a tough uncategorised climb just before the end, which makes it difficult. We have La Molina, which is stage 3, which is our usual mountaintop finish. Not the hardest of climbs, but it will create small gaps. Stage 4 is the big one. Port NA is back. 2013 was the last time we climbed here. It was Dan Martin who won by about 30 odd seconds to go on to actually take the overall lead, and he held on and he won, which is quite a surprise. Stage 5 again, same stages. We've had a number of seasons here. Valverde won again last season. Stage 6 will be our only big sprint day, and then followed by Stage 7, which is the usual Montjuic circuit in Barcelona. So harder than last season because we have one extra mountaintop finish. Now, weather forecast is poor. Snow is predicted. However, unlike Tirreno, these climbs, they're used to having snow here. So if you look back in some of the previous years, previous editions where we've got snow at the side of the road, they are very good at clearing the roads here and keeping them open, which would be the hope for all us cycling fans, that these stages don't get cancelled, they don't get shortened, especially Stage 4, which is a monster stage with 2 Especial climbs and a Category 1. I have faith in the organisers, and the people out here kind of know how to deal with the snow. And hopefully we get a full week's racing.
See, that's the danger of the extreme weather protocol. It was used correctly in Paris-Nice. You saw them having a snowball fight on the side of the road. That day it was extreme. But the day before the Tirreno stage, they actually called it. And there was a big mess on Twitter the day after where Nibali was calling out a bunch of riders for being, wussies. And see, if they do the same thing here, it's going to destroy the race. And it's going to destroy the future of racing because, you know what? Riding your bike in the weather is a part of the sport called cycling. So I do agree that rider safety is first of all, but come on. It's not like riding in the snow or riding in the rain is that tough. Come on, man up. Saying that, I've actually never ridden 300 kilometers in snow. That's next on my bucket list. I'm sorry, guys.
I was going to point out something like that there, Jesper.
Yeah, I know. I was feeling it coming there, but being judgmental today. Start list, let's move on to that. It's so spectacular. Let's start with defending champion Richie Porte and BMC. There was a bunch of talk about them being joint leaders, Richie Porte and TJ Van Garderen. How's that going to pan out?
We'll see. Porte, quote himself, was sick as a dog after Paris-Nice, so unsure of his current form and fitness because of that. He obviously ended Paris-Nice very strong. He managed to go with Contador in his attacks in the final stage. He was up there in the Queen stage, so form is good. Van Garderen disappointed in Tirreno. The Queen stage was cancelled, and then he lost time on the second but last stage, and then his time trial was atrocious, probably because he'd switched off. If they go in as joint leaders, it is actually good for this race. There are many teams who have 2 very, very strong riders because Stage 4 is such a demanding day that you really need teammates all the way up the final climb, and you can respond to other attacks. So I think they will start as team leader, joint team leaders. What happens on Stage 3? If one of them loses a lot of time, then clearly a decision is made. But in terms of the hierarchy at BMC, Van Garderen definitely is above Porte.
And it's not only GC that they could go for. They have the quality of riders to go for a bunch of stage wins here. They got Phil Schill, they got Rowan Dennis, they got Ben Hermans, Atapuma, Sanchez, Bookwalter. I mean, all these guys have shown form recently, and I really like their team. And I'm looking at Phil Gilbert going out there testing the legs before their dance, before the classics. And there are a few stages here that Valverde has won in the past, and he could actually snatch on the line.
Most certainly. Not been in the best of form, bit of injury recently, not completed all of the races, so we'll see how he's going, but certainly some of the so-called sprint stages are right up his street because we don't have too many fast riders here, and quite a few of them will be dropped on some of the more demanding stages. Sanchez going well, Brent Bookwalter, hugely impressive rider in the last season or two. Atapuma had a strong race here last season. BMC have a well-stacked team.
Like so many other teams, like we can go through and say a well-stacked team and pick out 1 to 5 riders that can all do well in this race in different categories. Next team up on the block, Movistar. I'm looking forward to seeing the Quintana versus Contador versus Froome. I'm really hoping that's what we're going to see here at Catalunya. Where in that does Quintana stand out of those 3? At this point in time, of course.
I would say second. I'd have him above Contador. I can hear already the Contador fans screaming at me. Not raced since the Colombian Championships, and that was just after San Luis. He's been over in Colombia training at altitude as usual near his home. He will arrive here full of form and be bang on straight away. As you've mentioned, like most of us, we cannot wait to see the big battle, which is Froome. It's Quintana, which is your season-long battle there, because these two will be fighting out the Tour as they have done last year as well. Contador, can he really step up again? And the one you haven't mentioned, Fabio Aru, the newcomer, second in the Giro, won the Volta, had a slow start to the season, but he will be looking to test himself against the biggest names in cycling right here.
So the newcomer Fabio Aru and the rest of Astana, I'm looking at their team. I'm also looking at Miguel Angel Lopez. So we're talking about bringing two strong riders. I mean, Mr. Superman himself, he's strong right now.
Amazing. Simply amazing. Is going to win his first World Tour stage fairly soon. Could do it in this race because he might be allowed a little bit of freedom to go off the front if we get an overly tactical race, and he is a quite sensational climber, as we've already seen last season and this year. Astana arrived with their Giro team basically from last season, minus a couple of riders who have left. Landa was one of them, but Lopez comes in. They've only got 7. Somebody's dropped out last minute, but they do have Tiralongo, they've got Canguert, Cataldo, Malacamne, and my favourite domestique, André Zeitz.
The beast, as you called him last time.
He is the beast. Just watch as he goes to the front. Astana, very, very strong. I'm looking to see Aru at Grand Tour level now. He's had a slow start to the season, which is understandable, but Catalunya is, for many of these riders, their first major test of the season, and I would expect Aru to be on top form.
See, the first major test, I see Rodriguez on the start list. We all know he's done good here in the past, but if it's not a Grand Tour race, I have no faith in Rodriguez whatsoever. So it's just, looking at that list, if I had to bet, I'd bet on Ilnur Sakarin over Rodriguez. But Rodriguez has better potential if he actually shows up with form, and I feel like we say that time and time again every time Rodriguez is in a race. How do you look at Katusha?
Katusha looked good. As you say, they've got joint leadership there. They've also got Taramay, who is a very talented climber. Zakarin was on fire in Paris-Nice. Can he continue that level of form into this race? Not many people do that, perform very well at Paris-Nice, and then again here. Rodriguez has won this race before. He knows the roads very well. La Molina climb suits him down to the ground because it usually comes down to a smallish kind of sprint. He can pick up bonus seconds on some of the other stages. So Rodriguez is always a dangerous man here, but having two strong riders, definite advantage for Katusha.
And for a potential sprint, Alexev, I can't pronounce that, Tashevic?
Good effort, yeah.
He is fast. Also an uphill finish.
Fast-ish.
Fast enough for a race like this.
Debatable. If he finishes on the podium, that will be a result for him.
See, now, for the Tour Down Under, we mentioned Swift. Since then, he's done well. Now we're going to mention Dacevic, and you guys are going to keep an eye on him, and we'll see how he goes here in this race. It's going to be tough to have a sprint finish, though, because there's only really one team really focused on a sprint, and that's Cofidis. If you look at Team Sky, which is the next team we'll talk about, Ben Swift is their only really flat sprinter-ish rider on that team. The rest of the team screams mountains and GC.
Yeah, they do, but let's get straight to it. Sky have simply an amazing team. This is so much better than everybody else. It's ridiculous. This is like the old days of kind of HTC Columbia in terms of sprints. This is just brilliant. Froome, Thomas, Nieve, Poles, Roach, Kirienka, Boswell, and then Swift. I mean, that's just ridiculously strong. In terms of who they'll take to the Tour, we've got Froome, Thomas, Poles, Roach, Kirienka. So 5 of this squad will make up more than half of their Tour squad. Swift will benefit from Team Sky going to the front and setting a very fast pace. He has become just better and better at climbing every single season. We're just waiting for him to take that first win. He's getting closer and closer. I think he's now in 4 or 5 second places after Milan-San Remo on Saturday. He's getting there. He just needs a race where all the fast men are dropped, and he benefits from Team Sky setting that very fast pace. But he's developed into such a good climber that I think he could take a stage at some point in this race.
I don't want to move on to the next team quite yet, but you say all the fast guys are going to be dropped. He got beat by Simon Gerrans in the Tour Down Under. There's no way he's going to get dropped before Ben Swift. So Ben Swift is going to have a really tough time winning a stage in a World Tour race. So all the love for Swift.
If Swift gets his sprint right, he can beat Gerrans in a sprint. Now, I know Gerrans beat him in the Tour Down Under because Impey led him out superbly, but Swift can, in the right circumstances, get the sprint right. And in Geraint Thomas, he has somebody who can really do a good lead out. Now, you might find that surprising that Thomas, well, he'll be riding for GC. I think Thomas will help out his pal Swifty. Being an ex-pursuiter, he can hit the front with a K to go and deliver a really strong lead out.
Yeah, because looking at that team, many would think that coming off recent victory at Paris-Nice, Geraint Thomas will go in as leader, and Chris Froome hasn't raced since Herald Sun Tour will come in as a helper, a luxury helper. And then if Chris Froome has that really high level of form, he'd go in as captain instead.
No. Froome has stripped back his schedule this season. He's only racing a handful of races, the biggest races you can possibly get, and he goes in to win. He's been in Kenya. He's enjoyed the sunshine and the warm temperatures. He's not had to worry about catching a cold like most of the European riders. He arrives here. Yes, he doesn't have race legs or kind of kilometres in the legs from races, but he will be bang on top form right from the start, and his aim this season will be to win every single race he enters.
On that note, another rider that likes to win every single stage race he's in, Alberto Contador. You saw him crying on the podium when he finished second. Emotional scenes down Paris-Nice. I'm really hoping that El Pistolero can get it right here and take a victory in Catalunya. He's also bringing in a pretty good team, actually. Nothing compared to Sky, but pretty good.
Not bad. I'm a bit worried about Contador, in all honesty. I think he's on the slide. I don't get the impression he's as good as he has been before. It's been a while since we've seen him really kind of compete with Froome. Right at the start of last season in Andalusia, he did beat him in a stage, but Froome went on to take the overall. In the biggest races, it's been a while since he's competed against the top riders. He looked okay in Paris-Nice. He complained about a gearing problem that cost him the victory in the Queen stage. He was attacking on Col d'Ez. He didn't manage to shake off Richie Porte. He didn't manage to create a big enough gap on the other riders that were chasing him. I would be hugely surprised if Contador wins a race like this season, which is a shame because I'm a massive Contador fan, but I just get the feeling that he is starting to decline.
That's not going to please our viewers because I know that about 3/4 of them all love Contador more than any other rider in this pro peloton. Myself included. I really like to see him take a big win here near in the end, but that's rough. If he can't win Catalunya, how is he expected to win the bigger races later on this season against the same guys?
I don't think he will. I really don't think he will. Froome, Quintana, Aru, I think they're in front of him. I do love Contador as well myself, but I just don't get the impression he can beat the top riders anymore. Those stinging attacks that he used to do, I don't see them anymore. And Froome is so much better than him.
Dreams have been crushed. I can already hear them already. Sorry, Chad. Let's move on to the next team before you all start crying. Ethics Quickstep. Dan Martin, you mentioned earlier when he won that stage and won the over GC. Also got Gianni Meersma, has won several stages here at Catalunya. What do you think of their team?
Meersma won back-to-back stages here in 2013. Seemed like he was going to be the next star of cycling, and it's not quite happened for him, to be honest. He'll be looking to pick up some stage wins. Alaphilippe is here. He's still recovering from illness, probably going to play a role in the lead out. They've got Petr Vakoc, who's been going very well so far this season. Dan Martin has a good chance of doing something here. He is a local. He lives in Girona. This is the thing about the Catalunya race. A vast majority of the peloton actually live in Girona, so it's like the home race for almost all the riders. Martin knows it well. He's done well here in the past. He will go in with confidence. There is no time trial, which is a huge bonus to most of the climbers here. They don't have to worry about losing time. He certainly will be targeting a top 5 finish.
The question is though, can he stay on his bike? It's gonna, it's gonna rain. It's gonna snow. Can he stay on his bike?
Yes.
I hope so. We saw in Milano San Remo when they got close to the end, there were so many crashes. It wasn't due to the weather, but more of the nervousness in the peloton. And I'm hoping to see no more crashes this next week of racing. When does a guy like Julian Alaphilippe pick up? Like, he is targeting later on the Ardennes. He's in this race, and there are several finishes that could suit a fast guy like him, but when does his form really start to peak?
I've mentioned this before on Twitter. I have concerns about I was going to say what they've done to Alaphilippe, or maybe what Alaphilippe's done to himself. So last season, 21 years old, he goes and has an incredible season. He was second in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, which you just don't do at that age. He was out doing training rides of 300 kilometres plus. I remember talking to a very experienced rider, not particularly about Alaphilippe, but about younger riders, and he was telling me how it's very easy to burn youngsters' legs. Alaphilippe, I think, did too much last season, far too much last season. I can see why they kept racing him, because he was doing so well. He was very close to taking a big win in his Neo-Pro season, but too much, far too much in his first season, and now they are paying for it. He was disappointing towards the end of last year. He's been disappointing so far this season. He's just not got the legs. I think it might take quite some time before we see Alaphilippe back to where he was last year.
That really hurts me. He was so fun to watch last year, which was also the reason, as you mentioned, he rode so many races. But I'm sure we were all cheering for him to actually take that big stage win in his first season, just like Tish Benoit and Ronnie van Landeren and pretty bit. But
I think sometimes it takes strong leadership and management to actually say to a rider like him, no, you're not going to do this, because we have the longer term in mind.
But usually ethics is good at that.
They are, but judging by how they burnt him out last season, they seem to have slightly misjudged it. Again, as I've said, he was out doing 300 kilometre plus training rides, which somebody like Stijn van den Berg does, but he's a very powerful and experienced member of the peloton. You don't normally hear about 21-year-olds going out and doing 300k plus behind a motorbike before Liège-Bastogne-Liège. It obviously helped him in that he finished second last season, but I think it's kind of destroyed his legs for, hopefully, a short period of time, and we do see him back to where he should be, because he is a magnificently talented young man.
Let me correct you, it's Jim van den Berg, by the way. Orica Greenedge, a team with so much talent that have been nurturing it well, it's coming out to shine now. Esteban Chaves. I am interested to see. He's in huge company here. It's a bit early for him to show form, but if he's on form, could he dance with the best like he did in the Vuelta?
Yeah, the smiling assassin. Chaves, I have him down as a future Grand Tour winner, most certainly. I think it would probably be the Vuelta. He goes in, he's a magnificent rider. Like a few of them, he's had a tranquilo start to the season, nice and easy, no pressure, building up for the Giro. But, it starts here. Same with Aru, same with a few other riders. This is where it begins, because you are riding against the best riders in the world. So many top riders are here. You want to test yourself. You don't want to be finishing 50th. You want to be going in and seeing how far you can go against Froome, Contador, Aru, Quintana. So I would expect Chaves to be top 10 certainly, maybe even a bit better.
I see the chat is suggesting that Gerrans is going to be leading out Impey for most of these stages. Is that right? I couldn't see that out anyway, but you know what? Sometimes the chat has good ideas and bad ideas, and you know where this falls.
They said Matt White was on, and he did say that Impey might sprint. Now, Gerrans, he did Tour Down Under, Cadel, Evans. He then started in the Italian race a couple of weeks back where it was horrendous weather conditions and he DNF'd. So he's not raced since that point, but we all know that Orica seem very good at preparing riders in their training to start races very strongly, like Matthews did. They have a tremendous record in this race. They have a base feeling nearby, but Impey's going to be leading out Gerrans unless something goes wrong. If Gerrans is there at the end of the stage, there's no way he's leading out Impey.
I agree with you. He's got soul. On that team, he is the alpha dog, so to say. He is the man that if he's there in the finish, he will be the guy that's going to sprint. We're nearing the end of a long list of riders and teams that are stacked so far, and when we get to the star list, we'll actually try something different. I have something good in mind when we get there, but before we get there, two teams left that I can see with star riders in this first cycling start list. Tom Dumoulin, who is coming to Catalunya and his plane is underway. I said in Paris-Nice, you know what? I don't think he's got it. You know what? He still got it.
Yeah, but he disappointed towards the end. He was dropped.
Is he peaking this early?
No. He's, as I mentioned, he had the flu as well. He got flu, so he's not at the best preparations in between Paris and Catalunya. I don't think he's going to go particularly well this week.
Why so?
Because he's had the flu, and it's very difficult. You know yourself, if you have a cold, if you have a flu, you try to do any physical exercise, it's very, very difficult. You try cycling up a 10-kilometre mountain at 7%. Too hard. I do like Warren Barguil, though. Coming back from all those crashes that happened to the Giant riders, Barguil's a rider who I rate very, very highly. It's probably too early in his season in terms of how many races he's done. I think this is probably his first race. I do like Barguil.
Yeah, it's good to see all the riders coming back. Early season, there were a bunch of crashes involving cars on their training rides and their recon rides, and you know what? Let's have none of that in the future. Those are real sad stories to hear about. AG2R. We've had this discussion so many times now. Bardet or Pozzo Vivo. This is the third time actually this year.
Or both.
Or both, of course. First one, that was Oman, and I said Bardet, you said, no wait, I can't even remember. First one was Oman, next one was somewhere in between, and now we have this.
Both. Like the other teams, you're going with two road captains. I do like Bardet. Frustrating in Paris-Nice. He was looking very strong in the Queen stage. I noticed his position when he was riding with the Sky Chain at the front, Thomas at the back of that. Bardet was on his wheel. For the first half of the big climb, Bardet is on Thomas's wheel, which is exactly where he needed to be. The climb levelled out as they went through a village. Bardet drifted back for some reason towards the back of the bunch. At that point, Contador attacked and took with him Henao and Port and Thomas, and Bardet, his chance is gone. He's in the second group. He realises that he's messed up in terms of position, and he attacks once, doesn't get across. He must have attacked about 6 times, and he just could not get across because the gap was too big at that point, and other riders would close him down. He had the legs. Why he drifted to the back of the bunch at that point. He's young. He's inexperienced. He needs to learn that lesson. There is no time to switch off on a kind of mountaintop finish when you have Contador and Thomas and the big names. You must remain focused 100%. So I hope he's learned his lesson, because he had tremendous legs in Paris-Nice. He had tremendous legs in Oman. He has to go into this race as one of the favourites. Pozzo Vivo not had such a good season yet. A favourite rider of mine. I do like him. Not sure he's going to be at the same level as Bardet.
See, I'm just going to catch up on an earlier note. You mentioned that Henao was the first one to attack as well. Some people say that Henao won the race for Geraint Thomas. Do you agree with that?
He was a massive part in Thomas winning the race, which is his role on Team Sky. So that's why you have so many good riders on your team. So you have somebody left to do the pulling. Teammates are worth their weight in gold. Sky have the best team, that's why they win so many races. They still obviously have some of the best riders in the world, but you need teammates towards the end of stages. You need to have riders who can go, cover the moves, chase down attacks, and certainly Sergio Henao, he earned his salary in Paris-Nice.
I know there's still a bunch of GC guys to talk about, but you know what, we'll go on all day, so let's quickly talk about some outsiders, like some breakaway guys, and let's talk about some sprinters, and then we'll catch up on it all, or round up on it in the star section. So start with sprinters. We already mentioned Ben Swift, Nasser Bohani, Simon Gerrans. Who else?
Well, you mentioned your big friend from Katusha.
Kacevic, of course.
Yeah, of course. Nicky Sant from Giant, who rode into some form in Torino. He will have a massive role this season for Giant, because obviously Degenkolb's out injured and Kittel left, so Arndt will fill the void. He sprinted last season and did quite well in some races. I would be expecting quite a lot from him this year. Lotto will have Tosh van der Sande, who often goes well in Spain, and in particular this race. David Chimolai from Lamprey, who likes to sprint after a tough day. Kiel Reinen from Trek, the American rider, he'll be up in the sprints most of the days. Jonas van Genekten, very hit or miss sprinter, put it that way, from I Am Cycling. And from my favourite team, Caja Rural, we will have Carlos Barbero.
And Hugh Carthy, good friend of the show.
And Hugh Carthy.
What will be his role, actually? Will he be trying to ride GC as he's tried in the past, or is he a breakaway rider?
He'll ride GC.
He will? How do you think he'll go?
He will want to test himself against the best riders in the world. And hopefully he can do a good ride for him, which would, you're looking at the start list. Realistically, a top 20 finish would be outstanding for Hugh. Potentially top 3 in the young rider classification would be a really good result for him. He's realistic. You look at it, Froome, Contador, Aru, Quintana, Bardet, Barguil, you've got riders who will finish top 10 in Grand Tours, so you can't be ridiculous and say, I'm going in and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. A young Irishman, Eddie Dunbar, got himself in a bit of trouble this week for doing that, saying he was going to win the Tour de France and all this nonsense, and Nico Roach reminded them that his first target should be to finish his first pro race. So he crashed and burned. Hugh has a very level head, so he will be looking to do well on stages 3 and 4. So a kind of top 20 finish would certainly be a good result for him.
If you're listening to this, Hugh, good luck. If you're not listening to this, good luck. So usually, when we talk about first stages and breakaway riders, Petersky would be the first guy to mention, but I think he's still out with a crash early on this season. If you're out there and you're a betting man, that first stage is going to be a mess. I don't think it's going to come down to a sprint stage. I think a late attack will take it, or an early breakaway. For that, who in this peloton would you put your money on? Or who have you put your money on?
Nobody yet.
Yet.
Breakaway riders, okay, so it might be quite hard to get in the break because it was successful last season. Unlike you, I don't think they'll make the same mistake as they did last year. I think it will be controlled. However, it won't stop people from trying. So Aramendia from Caja Rural, a very strong attacking rider who always likes to go on a breakaway. Caja Rural will have somebody in that break. It might be Louis Masbonnet, it might be Molina. They'll try and infiltrate the break for definite. Some of the other smaller teams will also try and do the same. It's very, very difficult to pick a breakaway rider who's going to go all the way on stage 1. I go Aramendia, but I do think they'll try and bring it back, and we'll have not an enormous bunch sprint, but a kind of smallish, maybe 100 rider bunch sprint.
See, I'm looking at Cannondale, and I know that they're not stupid. Jonathan Walters is not stupid. So they'll have a guy in that early breakaway because they don't have a sit-out sprinter. I'm looking at Michael Woods. Do you think they'll let Michael Woods get up the road? Because he's a fast sprinter near the end.
Michael Woods will not be allowed to get away.
I hope so. A guy from Garmin will be my bet for stage 1. They are going to need something soon, because we haven't mentioned Iran yet, but I'm sure we will when we get into the star section, which we will right now. So for your 1-star riders, David, let's hear it.
Dan Martin, Warren Barguil, and my left field pick, which will be Ryder Hesjedal.
Oh, I like that pick. I was mentioning it off stream before we went live that Ryder Hesjedal is in fact still alive and riding his bike. Let's hear about your 1-star pick, Ryder Hesjedal.
Yeah, I just wanted to go with something different. There's so many hugely talented riders here. Arguably, I could have put another 10 riders in that slot. So strong at the Giro last season. Now with Trek, where he'll be undoubtedly the team leader in these races, he will want to start building up form. He usually goes well, kind of Liège, Bastogne-Liège type races as well. So he'll be looking to get his form in gear. If you think about how good he was in the last 2 weeks of the Giro, why not? Why not for this race?
Your picks are so fun. I mean, Warren Barguil, Ryder Hesjedal. I did these last minute and they're not very fun at all. But at least I gotta have Ilnur Sakharin on this. I mean, I did not have him for Paris-Nice, but he actually won a stage, and I was really happy to see that. A bunch of other guys on Twitter were happy to see Ilnur Sakharin. I'm now an official member of the Ilnur Sakharin fan club. Thank you very much for the invitation. I've also got Romain Bardet and Tom Dumoulin. See, Tom Dumoulin, I was not a believer at Paris-Nice, but I am now. I am a believer of Tom Dumoulin. I think he has the potential to go well. If he's sick, of course he won't. But to not have him on your star list, it's insurance, just like Fernando Gaviria, which we all know was this close to actually winning Milano-San Remo. And then, I mean, looking at the AG2R riders, you need to either have Pozzovivo or Bardet on this list. And I'm going for Bardet. I just have more trust in the Frenchman, and I think he'll go a top 10 finish here. 2-star riders.
Contador, Lopez, Bardet.
Bardet, of course. Talk about Lopez, because when you also have Aru on the same team, how is that going to work out?
Just, it could be an overly tactical race, and some of the second riders could be allowed to get away, and then the big riders sit back and they don't chase, and then that's it. He's such a good climber. He doesn't need much of a gap. He is sensational.
Yeah, I've gone with Aru, your fellow Astana teammate. We got Richie Porte and then Geraint Thomas. He's the left side pick on this one. Last year we saw Richie Porte win from Sky when Froome wasn't feeling well. What's here to stop that from happening? We've also saw Geraint Thomas doing really well. We all know that he did crash in Milano-San Remo, but the news is that he's doing alright. He's got the form, he's got the speed to climb these mountains. It will be very, very tough. But you know what? He's a future Grand Tour winner too, or at least he's trying to. So this is the time to show. And you know what? What's going to stop him and Froome from going 1 and 2, or any of the Sky riders from going 1 and 2 up these climbs?
Quintana.
I think that's a good lead into the 3-star riders.
3 stars. Froome, Aru, Quintana.
Yeah. I got Contador instead. I have faith. I have faith in El Pistolero. You saw how sad he was when he finished second in Paris-Nice. He obviously wants this, and he's struggling to get it. And he will try something different. You gotta admit, his long attacks makes this sport worth watching from beginning to the end.
Listen, I've said it. I'm a Contador fan. I'm also a realist. I think Contador is on the slide. His long range attacks are brilliant. That final stage in Paris, he had to do it, and he did it. He didn't win, but it was an outstanding attack. We think back to Tirreno a while back. He attacked from about 100k out. Contador's an amazing cyclist. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he is up there challenging Froome. But for me, I've got him at 4th place.
See, before we go on to a prediction, since there are so many great riders in this, and I know people out there mainly listening to us for their fantasy selections, if you had to rate the top 6 guys for GC, how would your from 1st to 6th place in GC look at the end of this Catalunya if no stages are cancelled?
Froome, Aru, Quintana, Contador, Bardet, Lopez.
So if you're out there listening and you're wondering who should I pick in my team, those guys are all great picks. But Lopez that high up when there are so many other riders, do you really think that Superman will be that on form?
Yeah, I do. I'm a massive fan of his. I think he's an outrageously good climber.
See, I'm liking it. I'm liking what I'm hearing. Next week it's going to be a bunch of riding. I'm going to go with the rest of the chat. I'm going to say Alberto Contador. The chance of that happening is very slim looking at the field, but you know what? I'll be very, very happy if it does come true. But if you out there, just like David, am a realist, you should probably pick Chris Froome instead, because you know what? This year is going to be his year. He's going to win pretty much everything. So thank you guys very much for watching today's preview. Tune in tomorrow. Actually, before, we actually have one final question. Esteban Chavez, where will he finish?
7th.
So just outside the top 6.
Yeah.
So got your you got your question answered at JD Sonne. Tomorrow, Dwasdorf Landon with Oliver Nason from I Am Cycling. Tune in to watch that. I think is that at 8:30 usual time?
8:30 Central European Time.
So thank you very much for tuning in today, guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow.